Welcome to the channel. Today, we're diving into Anime Siege on Roblox, a game where your main goal is to roll for the strongest units and build the best team possible. In Anime Siege, you'll need powerful units not just to clear the story mode, but also to conquer the much tougher raid and siege stages later on. But not all units are created equal, some are absolutely essential if you want to progress smoothly without getting stuck. That's why we've put together this Anime Siege unit tier list, to help you know exactly which units to roll for, grind for, and add to your party. With this guide, you'll be one step closer to dominating every challenge Anime Siege throws your way. If you find this video helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on the best Anime Siege guides and tier lists. Alright, let's kick things off by looking at the C-tier units, the ones you generally want to avoid if you're trying to make serious progress in Anime Siege. First up, we have Akogo, Bankai. While he has really good range and is cheap to upgrade, his damage output is extremely low. In a game where DPS matters the most for clearing tougher stages, that weakness really holds him back. Next is John. For a rare unit, he actually deals decent damage, but his range is so limited that he often struggles to hit enemies consistently, especially as the game gets harder. Then there's Naruto. He's got solid range and decent DPS, but the problem is he's pretty expensive to upgrade. Early on, that cost slows down your entire team's momentum. Goku is another unit you'll want to avoid if possible. While he does buff your allies and is cheap to place and upgrade, his personal damage and range are really low, which makes him a liability in the long run. Moving on to Sanji. He's got okay DPS and range, but he's honestly the weakest rare unit overall. If you roll him early, he might be usable for a little while, but you'll definitely need to replace him fast. And finally, we have the base version of Akogo. His DPS and range are decent for the very early story stages, but he falls off really hard later on. If you stick with him too long, you'll hit a wall you can't climb over. In short, while these units can help you survive the early game, they're just not strong enough for the tougher stages. It's best to replace them as soon as you can. Moving on, let's talk about the B-tier units. These units are definitely better than the ones we just covered, but they still have some weaknesses that stop them from being top-tier picks. Starting with Ippon. He actually has very strong DPS, good range, and is a solid choice for progressing through story mode. But his upgrades are really expensive, which can slow you down if you're trying to build momentum quickly. Next is Kotaro. He deals good damage and has decent range, but compared to other legendary units, he's just not that impressive overall. You'll often find better options to replace him. Now we have Goku, Super. His range is very good, and his DPS is alright, but once again, he's expensive to upgrade, which makes him less efficient compared to other legendaries you could roll for. Ulpura is another interesting case. His range is excellent, and he can cover a lot of ground, but his damage is really low for how much he costs to upgrade. In longer stages, he just doesn't pull his weight. Next is Gujo, Young. He actually has the best DPS among epic units and a pretty decent range. However, he's mainly useful early on. Later stages will completely outscale him, and he'll need to be replaced. Finally, we have Hokari. His range is really good, and he's fairly cheap to upgrade, but his damage is low, meaning he struggles to keep up when enemies start getting tankier. Overall, B-tier units are okay for the early and mid-game, but if you want to dominate Anime Siege, you'll want to aim for even stronger units as soon as you can. Now let's move into the A-tier units. These units are really strong and can carry you through a lot of Anime Siege, but a few small flaws keep them just short of being the absolute best. First up is Gujo, Insane. He's got decent DPS and range, is great for story mode, and you can place a lot of him on the field. However, he's kind of mid before you evolve him, he really shines only after evolving. Next, we have Itadori Yoji. He's a solid early game unit with okay DPS and range, but he's not super cheap to upgrade, which can slow down your setup a bit if you're not careful. Genos is a great pick for beginners. He has good DPS, insane range when fully upgraded, and he's cheap to upgrade too. He's honestly one of the best early game units in Anime Siege if you're just getting started. Then there's Hopebeard. He brings very strong DPS and okay range, but his main drawback is that he's pretty expensive to upgrade. You'll need a solid economy to use him effectively. Finally, we have Broccoli. With good DPS and good range, he's another solid unit for story mode. However, just like Hopebeard, his upgrades cost a lot, which can make him a bit slower to get rolling. In short, A-tier units are very reliable, and if you manage your upgrades properly, they'll carry you a long way through story, raids, and even some sieges. Now for the part everyone's been waiting for, the S-tier units. These are the absolute best characters in Anime Siege, the ones you should be aiming for if you want to dominate story, raids, and sieges without struggling. Starting with Song Jianwu, Awakened. He has amazing DPS and range, and he even gets buffed when you place shadow units. Plus, when you have Song Jianwu, Bull Lion, and Baru all on the field together, they boost each other's damage, making him an insanely strong team player. Next is Broccoli, Rage. He's an absolute powerhouse with excellent DPS and range, works great in every part of the game, and you can place a lot of him on the field. The only real downside is that his upgrades are expensive, but the payoff is more than worth it. Then we have Hanami. She has good DPS, is super cheap to upgrade, and shines especially in non-infinite game modes. The only drawback is that you can only place 2 of her, but with her strength, that's usually enough. Alpura, Awakened, is another top-tier option. He not only deals great DPS with insane range, but he also slows enemies, which makes a huge difference in tougher stages. Again, he's a bit expensive to upgrade, but the utility he brings is massive. Next up is Tatsumoki. She's got excellent DPS and range, just like Broccoli, Rage, and she also has a high placement limit. Expensive upgrades are her only weakness, but once she's built up, she's unstoppable. And finally, Naruto, One Tail. For a legendary unit, he's absolutely incredible, with top-tier DPS and meta-level performance for story stages. Just like the others, he's a little expensive to upgrade, but he's still one of the best legendaries you can get your hands on. In short, if you manage to roll any of these S-tier units, you're in a fantastic spot to clear any content Anime Siege throws at you. And finally, let's talk about the meta-tier units, the absolute best of the best in Anime Siege. If you want to crush infinite modes, story, raids, and sieges effortlessly, these are the units you need on your team. Starting with Grand Marshal Bull Lion. He has excellent range, very high DPS, and gains 2% more damage every wave. He's considered the best DPS unit for infinite modes, but keep in mind, he's extremely expensive and you can only place 2 of him. Next up is Baru, Ant King. Baru applies bleed, has insane DPS, and decent range. Just like Bull Lion, he's expensive to place and upgrade, and you can only place 2, but his bleed effect makes him extremely valuable for tougher enemies. KJ is another top meta pick. He has very good DPS and range, and his 4th upgrade is extremely strong for a low investment. He's perfect for non-infinite game modes, but if you want to fully upgrade him, be ready to spend a ton. Then there's Song Jianwu, Black Heart. He has insane DPS, very good range, and is meta across all game modes. He gets even stronger when you place other shadow units like Bull Lion and Baru, making him one of the best overall units in the game. Broccoli, Enraged, is another must-have for infinite mode players. He gains 1.5% more damage every wave, has great DPS and range, and completely dominates long fights. However, like the others, he's expensive to place and upgrade. Then we have Speedwagon, the meta farm unit. He's essential for all game modes, producing $4,500 per wave at max upgrade, which is a massive boost to your economy. And finally, Commander Erwin. He's the meta buff unit, multiplying the damage of nearby units by 1.75, which is crazy powerful, especially when paired with top DPS units. If you can build a team around these meta units, you'll be able to breeze through any challenge Anime Siege throws at you.